This is a moment that tells us everything about the Iliad, what's at stake in the Iliad, and what is the moral message of the Iliad. There's so many ways to talk about this. We must ask our friend and colleague Leonard Milner to talk about this because he has a particularly incisive take on the moment that we're focusing on here. We see here a picture within a picture. The camera zooms in on a litigation. There are two litigants, a plaintiff and a defendant. And the defendant claims to have the right to pay off the price of a life. Whose life? The narrative doesn't say, but that's what the claim is on the part of the defendant. On the other hand, the plaintiff refuses to accept any compensation. And I think of the film version of the book, Civil Action, where the voiceover says at the beginning of the film, what is the price of a human life? And what we see here is a meditation on exactly that. What is the price of a human life? There are no names named in this amazing narrative of a narrative. But obviously, what comes to mind is that the plaintiff could be Achilles and the defendant could be Agamemnon. Then the question is, who's the dead person?
Right.
Who died? And again, there are many levels to this. You could say, well, it's Patroclus, but in another sense, when you look at the whole story, when all is said and done, it could be Achilles himself.
And also because of the connection between the two. Right?
Because of the connection. And the wording here is so precise. Every word counts here, as is the usual case in our close readings of Homeric poetry.
So what's really jumping out at you when you look at it today?
More than anything else, I think it's the idea of a neikos, which is a certain kind of a feud or a litigation, but the word certainly applies to the initial dispute, quarrel between Achilles and Agamemnon. So that jumps out. Then the word poinē, which we translate here as the blood price. And this is the same word used by Ajax when Ajax says, this man Achilles wouldn't even accept a poinē for a mere girl, whereas others would accept a poinē for the death of a kinsman, somebody that they really, really, really love.
So just the diction itself is pointing us towards understanding these two passages in relation to each other.
Exactly. And as happens so often in Homeric poetry, if you don't succeed the first time you look at a passage, you're bound to sooner or later, because the medium keeps on telling its message in so many different ways and in such a consistent way, and the words are so precise. As long as we read out of the text and not into it, we really start getting it. It doesn't even matter when we start getting it, but we start getting it. And then there's no stopping us as readers, I think, once we have that confidence.
So Greg, can you talk a second about why do we have a freeze frame moment here in which it is undecided? One person is claiming the right to pay, the other one says they will accept nothing,
yes.
But we have no decision.
Well, it's because it's a frozen motion picture. The Shield of Achilles is a picture of the world as seen by Achilles, or maybe a better way to put it, as seen by the master narrator who is channeling Achilles. And it's the cosmos of the Iliad. And the camera has just zoomed in to the focal point of this cosmos, at least when it comes to life as imagined in a moment of peace versus life as imagined in a moment of war. And in this amazing stop motion picture moment, you have everything hanging in the balance. And I mean that literally, because there is a balance and there's a question of who's right and who's wrong. And there are concentric circles of participants who are weighing in about who's right or who's wrong. It's a challenge of arbitrating something that's morally very difficult. And the question is, will this challenge be answered? But because this is a stop motion picture, frozen within the narrative, it invites us as we go through the narrative to stop for a moment, look at this snapshot, and see how it helps organize our thinking about how the moments then keep on progressing from this moment to the very end of the telling. And at that point, when all is said and done, then we know, yes, it's really the life of Achilles that is at stake. At least that's what I come up with by the time I'm finished. And there are different ways of looking at this, but I think the precision of the words points to something like that.
If we're looking at Achilles then, if
Yes.
that's his life that's in
Yes.
the
Yes.
balance here, and we're looking for the value of that, then what's the relationship between that and the fact that this scene is on the shield, right?
Well, let's think of the
On his
fact that
armor.
the ancient Greek word for a picture on a shield is a sēma.
Right.
So we come right back to the importance of that word, which is the word for meaning, but also the word for the tomb of a hero and everything the hero is about because of his or her mortality. So it's a call for interpretation. It's a challenge. And every hero in Homeric poetry has his own picture on his own shield. And each picture is different because each individual is different.
And that's part of the compensation too, right? The idea is that the armor is in some way compensating Achilles.
Definitely.
So, yeah, so every layer, it just keeps going and going. You could keep talking about, we could do a half hour on this.
We could do a half hour,
Yeah.
but maybe I could make one other observation. This shield is the second shield of Achilles, at least the second shield, because the first one is now being wielded by Hector.
Right.
Patroclus is killed. Hector has taken Achilles' original shield. I say original in terms of the beginning of the Iliad.
Okay.
And now this is a second shield. And you can ask yourself, well, how is the picture here in Iliad XVIII different from whatever picture there was on the first shield of Achilles, which now Hector has?
I don't know how.
Well,
Do you want to say? I do want to know. We could talk about it all the time.
Well, in another project, this is the book project called Homer the Pre-Classic. I study a poetic treatment of the first shield, which Euripides, master anthropologist that he is, replays, so to speak, in a tragedy called the Electra. And in the Electra, there's a choral passage where the first shield of Achilles is described and what kind of pictures there were on that. And it turns out to be very accurate from the point of view of the local traditions of the city of Argos. So it just goes to show that if you try to imagine the sum total of Greek verbal art, there were many, many, many different shields of Achilles with many, many different pictures. And the one that the Iliad gives us is like the masterpiece of all shields, and a shield that has a picture, a sēma, that is tuned in to that moment in the Iliad, Iliad XVIII.
Jeez, great. Microcosm to macrocosm, right? We did it all.
Yes,
That
there
was
you go.
amazing.
That's
How
wonderful.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you.